Hello again, this is Kevin with Custom Micro, and today we're going to do a walkthrough of the graphical user interface of the FS.com S3410-48TS-P Layer 2 Plus 48 port network switch. Let's do it. The next section on the left navigation is security. Under security, the first option is DHCP snooping. Again, there's some nice notes here about what DHCP snooping is, and you can toggle that on. It's off by default. We have our gateway anti-ARP spoofing, and as I go through this, I'll just mention that this switch is advertised and noteworthy to have a lot of advanced security settings that may go above and beyond your standard layer 2 plus switch that's on the market today. So this could be a very good selling point if you're looking for a switch with extra security options. So you can set up anti-ARP spoofing, ARP check, DAI settings, and ARP entries. You notice there we have a dynamic binding of this IP address to this MAC address. This is what I currently have the IP address of my laptop set to. So this ARP entry list is doing a very good job of detecting that. The next section under security is IP source guard. You can add ports to this. And again, there's great explanations here. You can always pause the video at any time to take a look at what these options do. There's also user binding under IP source guard. And again, there's a good description, and you can add those bindings according to your needs. The next section is port security. This is where we can add a port, and this is a common setting on network switches where you can set your secure address, your security action, those kind of features, and then we have our security bindings. We can again add an address, bind an IP to a MAC, to a VLAN. It says port security is used to allow only the packet whose source MAC address is consistent with the secure address to enter the switch. Again, this is going to be your port level security, your 802.1x features. Then we have NFPP, and this is where you can globally enable these different sections or settings. ARP guard, IP guard, ICMP guard. Again, a lot of advanced security features. Really quite nice. Then we have our storm control, and you can set that up at the port level. You can set your storm control based on your bandwidth usage, the number of packets, or the kilobits. You can also set the percentage of your broadcast, multicast, and unicast traffic. That wraps up security. Let's move on to advanced. The first section under advanced is port protect. Again, another nice feature. This in essence is like your guest isolation. So if you don't want the clients on these different ports to be able to communicate with each other, they really just need internet access, you can select ports and enable that feature. The next section under advanced is DHCP. Here you can enable the DHCP server function of the switch. I use this often in a production environment if this is an edge switch in your environment. I've created a couple of examples already. This will be your routed VLAN IP address, and here's the IP range. You can of course edit these. There's also a feature for static addresses. So you can add a static address. So if you know the MAC address of that device and you want to set it to always get the same IP address when it's connected to the network, you can do that here. Or even better, you have a client display list and you can bind the MAC address to a dynamic IP. So as you have new dynamic clients that are added, as they get an IP address dynamically through the DHCP server, if you want them to always get that same IP address they were assigned the first time, you can simply bind the MAC address to that dynamic IP. The next section is ACL. Here you can create your standard access control list. If we click add, you can also create extended ACLs. Once you've created the ACL, you can go back in and edit it and set it up accordingly for your needs. There's an ACL time and an ACL application. Very useful because especially if you want to disallow certain traffic during certain times, maybe after hours, you can do that here. And here we find the quality of service section. We talked about this a little bit earlier when we were talking about our voice VLAN, but here we can set up our class, our policy settings, and our flow settings as it relates to quality of service. So you want to do this in conjunction with setting up your voice VLAN to make sure that those packets are prioritized. And that wraps up the advanced section. We'll move along to System. Under System, the very first section is Settings. Here we can set the system time and the time zone. You can also enable time synchronization, which is a nice feature. We can set the password for the web management. Underneath Reset, you can restore the factory defaults. You can also import and export the startup configuration. Underneath Enhancement, you can change your logout time, you can change your web access port, and you can enable redirection so it forces people, if they try to connect through port 80 HTTP, to redirect them to HTTPS. You can set up your SNMP version 2 and 3, your community strings, traps, all those type of things. And then last, under the settings, we can set up DNS servers. This will be helpful if you do set up an external network time protocol server, NTP server. If you use a URL, a host name, you'll have to have your DNS servers also set up for that to work. The next section under System is Upgrade. I mentioned earlier, you can subscribe on FS site once you purchase one of these switches, and you'll be notified when new firmware updates are released. And this is where you would go to perform that upgrade from the web interface. Stay tuned, because we will have a command line walkthrough of this network switch, and that'll be very helpful to you for those of you who prefer a command line interface. The next section under System is System Logging. Logging is enabled by default, and you can even display the log, and you can see the last 200 logs right here at a glance. Very helpful. There's some very useful troubleshooting tools under Detection. First of all, you have your standard ping. A lot of network switches support this. But you also have traceroute right here in the web interface. So if you want to see how many hops it takes to get somewhere, see the path it's taking, it's a very useful tool. You even have cable detection. So you can see what's going on with cables that are connected to the ports. It tells you some information here about what it's going to do. And then lastly, collection. It says one-click collection is used to collect fault information for troubleshooting. So these are very useful tools. And finally, the last section under System is the Web CLI, or Command Line Interface. This is a really nice touch. If you noticed earlier, SSH is not enabled by default on the switch, so if you need to make a quick command line configuration change, you can do it right here in the web interface. There also are some features that you can only do through the CLI. For example, this switch does support stacking, but in order to enable stacking, you have to do that through the command line. So you can do it right here in the web interface. You just simply put your command input, click send, and you're done. So that covers our web interface walkthrough of the FS.com model S3410-48TS-P. You're going to want to stay tuned, because we're going to have more videos to come about this switch. We're also going to have the command line walkthrough, and we have a special stacking video coming up. So you want to subscribe to our channel, ring that bell so you're notified when those videos go live. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time.